Before we get started today, make sure to subscribe to our new channels, David on China and David Zhang 360, where we will move forward to post new content there eventually. YouTube demonetized China Insider, and so if you want to continue to support our work, please go subscribe to the new channels. Just search David on China, no space, on YouTube, and David Zhang 360, also no space.
那我们刚好没饭了，我们6个人就一盒饭，你看。
People are calling this girl situation the Chinese kill line, and this might be a term you recently have heard. The Chinese internet has been obsessed with this term kill line or killing line. A state media reporter even tried to ask U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent about this at Davos.
So do you think there is kill line exists in the U.S.?
I can't.
Do you think the kill line for people that have meeting a huge expense let's make from middle class to financial rule exists in U.S.?
Sorry, I don't understand the question. I'm not sure you do either.
Guys, just so we know, we're at a 5-minute warning. So
Now, the original term comes from video games, but the internet metaphor describes how a certain income threshold in the US is considered, say, poverty, or people simply can't live normally. Now, the term itself can be also used to encompass all sorts of measurements and range of hardships like homelessness, debt, drug problems, or even economic instability. And so the official propaganda on this claims that the so-called kill line hangs like a ghost over the heads of Americans, and obviously it indicates that the Americans are living like hell, and it's a threat that the Chinese people need not to worry about. So is that true? Well, as it turns out, the term is somewhat of an irony, because China's unwillingness to admit to its own so-called kill lines is quite interesting. The way they do so is they simply censor what the situation is like in China, and they go out and pretend like nothing is wrong.
几个小时了，人都我睡到他们抢救室的，因为没得人给钱，因为没得人给钱，所以说人都没挂，医院也没办法的。
是说就纠结在这个位置。你没得钱的话，你这样你给家属电话，我给你家属打电话。
So today, my goal. Let's talk about this so-called kill line, perhaps the biggest of them all in China, the real estate sector. But first, we need to lay the groundwork as to how the Chinese society tries to bend around the term or tries to claim that it doesn't exist, okay? So let's talk about different versions of the Chinese kill line. By their own definition, every time there is hardship, homelessness, or more, it's a kill line. Let's see. How about we start with the old senior population and the low-income population, which according to former Premier Li Keqiang, there's about 600 million Chinese people living on just 1,000 yuan a day. That's barely $150. A recent photo shows a person receiving so-called assistance from central government, and the total for this entire stimulus package was 141 billion yuan. Yet when it actually reaches the hands of the people, or for example in this person's perspective, it turns out to just be a whopping 16.18 yuan. Yeah, less than $2. And how did that happen? Well, an internet user from Yanjing County in the province of Yunnan posted that on January 29th. And basically, he did receive compensation. He got a subsidy from the Civil Affairs Office, this massive sum of 16.18 yuan. But if you really do the math, let's say China's real population is still 1.4 billion. 141 billion yuan in a package means even if you divide it among the 1.4 billion, each person should at least still get 140 yuan, not 16.18 yuan. That's like, how did they end up with 11% of what they should have received? Well, you guessed it, the CCP officials pocketed the money down the pipeline. Kill line. And not to be outdone for seniors, an internet user in northern China shows that the local government is issuing so-called generous subsidies to elderly people aged 80s to the 89s, which is just before you turn 90. And this is, guess how much the actual amount that they get is 30 yuan per person per month. So 30 yuan is like $3, $4. The notice specifically states that if the elderly person who receives this passes away in that same month, well, the subsidy, they'll have to pay it back. Yeah, $4 per month. And if you happen to pass away that month, well, you got to pay it back. You know, sometimes there's like some amount of money where if you give out to people, it's more offensive than if you had given them nothing. And in both of these amounts, I think, yeah, it's quite offensive. Now, it's almost Chinese New Year, and that means a ramp up of the yearly lower wage workers protesting the lack of pay ahead of the mass migration back home during the Chinese New Year. So there's videos of workers protesting pretty much every day across China about being unpaid for their labor. And yet it's more prominent during this time as people want to have some money so that they can travel back home for the holidays. And so Radio Free Asia did a compilation cut of the recent cases. This is not from this year, this is just from the recent days. That's another kill line. I've never heard of an American company who refused to pay their workers and not get into legal trouble, government trouble, or, in some cases, union trouble, right? The reason why Chinese internet users believe that Americans have so-called kill lines is because not everyone in China has access to a VPN to scale the firewall of censorship to actually read free information. And this is why I'm working with a group of engineers in the United States to widen access to internet users in China against this type of censorship. Now, this new initiative, it's called Escape the Great Firewall. It can provide direct links to Chinese internet users, hundreds of thousands of people in China, unfettered access to the free web for 30 days at a time. And all they have to do is very simple. Just click the link and they're through. And this new initiative is very much safe and it's high tech. It's very easy to use for people as well. So anybody that has a phone or a computer can use. And that is the key to fighting against the CCP censorship apparatus. But it does require your generous support. Because for every $2,000 we raise, we can generate 100 links, which by donating, you'll actually receive real-time status reports on how that money is being used and how links are being accessed. But what we need to do is ensure that this continues on, not just for 30 days, but for years to come. And it's basically my intention to help people in China to see the truth, because once they do and they will stop believing the lies of the CCP, that's when they start to lose support as nobody trusts what they're saying or claiming. So please head on to the link in the description if you can contribute to our cause. Thank you, and we'll continue. Biggest reflection of that is tofu jet construction, right? You cut corners, something bad is bound to happen. And this happened on February 2nd. 5 men were killed in the sudden collapse of a section of the under construction Yuangang Bridge, which is in, this is Jiangsu province. Now, Yuangang Bridge, which was being built by China Railway 12th Bureau, is part of this provincial line, and its initiative designed to create a high-capacity north-south water transport corridor. Now, the lack of care for the lower wage workers, the expendable lives, and the poor building construction material creates situations like this, which turns it deadly. Now, will people get compensation for this type of stuff? Probably not. Or if they do get some, it's like not enough, So that's another kill line. How about the EV kill line? This is a video of a Xiaomi EV being covered up after it shuts down in the middle of the road. I wonder what are you trying to hide by covering up a car? It's like when the ostrich sticks the head into the ground and pretends like nobody else can see them either. They got a big body up there. But the point is, their head is stuck in the sand. And what happened to the glorious EV revolution? Oh, did you also know that BYD sales have also tanked? Guess why? Well, it's another kill line. Because first, obviously, they're not that good. And second, BYD and other EV makers in China, they've always faked their sales number. In China, just simply you can register the car out of the factory as if somebody had bought them in order to feed into the data of your sales, and then you can go out and pretend like, oh, dude, look, we're selling so many cars. So now we get to our main kill line, which is real estate. Now, in China, real estate counts for about 30% of the Chinese economy, but when you're talking about what impact it has on an average person in China, it's like 80 to 90%. Simply because a lot of Chinese families spend so much time and spending all of their savings, their parents' savings, grandparents' savings, maybe even the future savings of their kids to buy a home. And I keep seeing this type of stuff on X. People claiming that North Korea has 100% home ownership, or that China has 90% home ownership. Like, okay, is it a flex to live in a country that executes you for listening to K-pop? Or is it a flex if your country's home ownership situation is like these people?
大家好，我是河南汝州烂尾路业主。老百姓买套房子，你感觉可容易？那挣了8、9一辈子的积蓄，恁说跑路都跑路了，钱恁挣了，叫老百姓搁这承担后果嘞。
00年985本硕夫妻回烟台工作，以为上岸了，结果掏空父母钱包快200万，买的房子烂尾了。
对面一家3口好温馨，为什么我不听老婆劝？当初买了这个烂尾楼，夜里真的想扇自己耳刮。生活还是要继续。
这个大爷多大岁数呢？你住这个？42。房子都已经烂了快10年了，你这房贷一直还着走。
还这一点不还咋办？不还银行才欠银行欠债嘛？这点1岁说21岁是不是买的没钱？然后切留着几还钱。
瞧这一副随时要跑路的样子，保安大叔可真敬业。电梯房没有电梯，只有电梯井；公共道路没有一块好砖，还要小心随时掉下水道的风险。标识标牌相当齐全，这个消防栓我也不知道算不算合格。
看不住社会的重合房，不能我说不下去了。
我就是那个在大庆花了70万买了套烂尾房的大冤种。当时销售看我岁数小，就妄自忽悠，说物业好，配套全，
有游泳馆、露天温泉，还有个侏罗纪公园。
交完钱，开发商扛着小姨子连夜就撂了，连口水都没喝呀。
父母钱包买的房，现在已经延期23个月了，快200万买来了4条惨痛教。
我今天又跑去看我的烂尾楼了，23年花光了所有的钱，付的首付，还贷款50多万付的买的房子，原定去年该交房子的，到现在还杳无音讯。为什么世界上会有烂尾楼这种东西？我想说，开发商开发房子，房子还没有修就开始预售，我们看好房子之后都去银行贷款了，银行把钱打给开发商，开发商用我的钱修房子，还修不起来吗？啊！
我那老房子都买了这个这么些年都租房子，
复工了好像就现在又停着了。
骗这年轻人还能挣嘞，你骗老人有什么用啊？挣不来了。
So that's a compilation. They're simply living in a kill line. It's called rotten tail building. Essentially homes that developers promised they would finish, but never. Abandoned homes means that these buyers have to either rent another place or simply move into these skeletal concrete jungle-esque blocks with no running water, no electricity, no elevator, heat, or basic amenities. They're simply stuck because they have to pay the bank each month, pay back the mortgage, and imagine how it feels to be a homeowner in that situation. And your home looks like it just went through a demolition, but they didn't finish with the skeleton of the building. So are we really to believe that China has truly a 90% home ownership? And how many people out of that 90%, if we are to go by their claim, is actually owning their homes? Plus, the land is not even private property. The government can decide any time to take back the land, as all home ownership in China, or all land ownership in China belongs to the government. So, kill line, right? Accountability. Now, where is that, you asked? Well, individual cases, they've been filed in court. They've resulted in some homeowners getting their compensation, but that's not a common happy ending. What's more common is, for example, a famous young couple I once covered, they've had to fight with the local government and the real estate developers to get their home done. But in the end, they admitted their defeat and moved back to the countryside, which is to help finish raising their children. There's a huge difference between, I would say, systemic problems and so-called individual stages of life. In the US, it's very difficult to own a home, to afford one, because prices are insane. But once you do reach a certain stage in life, it's possible. And you don't have to worry about that house being built from tofu direct material, or that you somehow won't see the completion of that. Sure, reality is not everybody's going to own a home or become homeowners. It sucks, but that's just how individuals, go through life, right? You have different stages. The same things happen in China too. People have different stages of life. But what they're doing is they're shielding it by wrapping it carefully in this so-called propaganda to pretend like this is not the case. Because in China, the idea is that let's just slap this home ownership label on us, that we say everybody can afford something, and then once you have that top-down directive, everything in between or below has to come into place. So it almost means like people that spend their entire lives saving and buying one house, right? That's their end goal. And when they do achieve it, and then they're meeting, scenarios like the Rotten Tail homes, can you really call that a home ownership if their entirety of existence as a society is to buy a house, right? Like that's it. I don't think that's real home ownership. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, because I'd love to hear about what your thoughts on the so-called kill line is, and if you think it's real. So yeah, thanks for watching today. Again, if you haven't subscribed to our new channels, China Insider is demonetized, so please go subscribe to David on China and David Zhang 360, where we're going to be moving forward with posting more new content on there and eventually going to those new channels completely. And yeah, YouTube has not been able to explain to us about our demonetized old channel. So we'll try to reapply for monetization, but if that doesn't work, we'll have to start from zero. So thank you very much again. Just search David Zhang 360 and David on China, no space, on YouTube.